let's talk about Horrid Henry. You might think you know him. He's the kid who loves pranks, hates homework, and drives his parents crazy. But today, we're going to peel back the layers and look at what makes this character tick, and maybe even uncover some surprisingly deep takes on his wild adventures.
And it all starts here, with Henry himself. I mean, just look at him. Tony Ross's illustrations just scream chaotic energy. He's this little whirlwind of plots and schemes. You can practically feel the mischief buzzing right off the page.
You know, this quote from the author Francesca Simon is really the key to the whole thing. She says, he's not bad, he's just naughty. He's that little voice inside all of us that kind of wants to see what happens if we break the rules. And that's the genius of it, right? He's a safe way for kids, and let's be honest, adults, to explore that impulse.
Okay, so keeping that idea in mind, let's really get into it. Who is Horrid Henry? I mean, the name says it all. Or does it?
So, the dictionary says horrid means something that causes horror, something shocking. But really, does Henry actually cause horror? Or is he just a kid who wants to eat sweets instead of veggies? That over-the-top label, horrid, is totally part of the joke.
To really get Henry, you have to see him in action, in his natural habitat. And usually, that means seeing him in conflict with, well, pretty much everyone.
And here it is. The main event, the core conflict of the entire series. Horrid Henry versus his brother, Perfect Peter. You've got chaos versus order, prankster versus tattletale, hates homework versus loves school. Peter is literally everything Henry is not, and that dynamic is the engine that drives almost every single story.
And this image just captures that tension perfectly. It's this constant tug of war between them that creates so much of the comedy. In a way, they define each other. Henry's whole identity is built on not being Peter, and Peter's is built on not being Henry.
So let's see how all this works in practice. We're going to zoom in and do a little case study on a classic story, Horrid Henry's Sleepover.
So, when you hear Horrid Henry Sleepover, what do you imagine? Total mayhem, right? Henry is the king of chaos, leading a night of epic pranks and mischief. Well, what actually happens is a bit of a curveball.
Okay, so Henry gets to go to his friend new Nick's house, which he thinks is the coolest place on Earth because there are no rules. But all his grand plans for causing trouble just fizzle. He wants to raid the kitchen, but the dogs beat him to it. He wants to bounce on the bed, but guess what? It's already broken. In a brilliant twist, the master of chaos gets dropped into a house that's even more chaotic than he is, and he absolutely can't stand it. He actually ends up calling his dad in the middle of the night, begging to go home. But the story doesn't stop there. This is where it gets really interesting, because when they adapted the story for TV, they made some pretty telling changes. Check this out. In the book, Henry's past sleepover crimes were kid stuff, like eating all the ice cream. But in the TV show, they crank it up to 11. We're talking flooding bathrooms and spray painting walls. And at Nick's house, the damage gets way worse in the TV version, and Henry calls home 2 hours earlier, at 1 a.m. instead of 3.
And here's the key takeaway. The TV show intentionally made everything more extreme. The fandom wiki for the show even says the adaptation is more intense, high adrenaline, and, get this, bleaker. Henry's fun night gone wrong is turned into a genuinely nightmarish experience.
And it's that bleaker tone that's made some fans take a second look at this story. They started wondering, wait a minute, is there something more going on here than just a bad sleepover?
People started talking about it online. And on Reddit, one user just hit the nail on the head. They wrote that the show has a funny way of showing realistic family problems without acknowledging them as problems. Suddenly, the chaos at Nick's house doesn't just feel funny anymore.
And another user built on that, zeroing in on Nick's parents. To Henry, they're cool because there are no rules. But this person had a totally different take, saying it represents how neglecting can look like cool parenting in such a good way. And this is where the whole story can just flip. Through Henry's eyes, Nick is the super lucky kid with cool parents. But through a more adult lens, some fans see a completely different picture. A chaotic, dysfunctional home where a lack of rules isn't freedom, it's actually a form of neglect.
So, wow, after going down that pretty deep rabbit hole, let's pull back. Why, after all that, are we still on Horrid Henry's team? Why do we find ourselves rooting for him? I think it all comes back to that first idea from his creator.
Henry stands up for imagination. He challenges the boring rules of the adult world. And, he shows us that being perfect, like his brother Peter, well, it doesn't really look like much fun, does it? He's the hilarious, harmless embodiment of that imp inside everyone.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Whether he's just a funny, naughty kid or a secret window into something deeper. Characters like Henry are important, and it makes you wonder, do we actually need these horrid characters to help us figure out what it really means to be good?